My name's Mark. I'm one of the pastors here at Trillium. Today we looked at the story of Jesus' journey up the mount into the temple and the overturning of the tables of the money changers and those who sold animals for sacrifice. And in that moment, Jesus not only overturns a few vendor tables, but he overturns the whole religion of sacrifice. That religion of punishment and sacrifice gets overturned by Jesus. Up to that moment, the temple had essentially been taken over by those people who wanted to make the religious practice of sacrifice the primary importance of what the temple was about. And Jesus reminds the people in the temple that, in fact, the purpose of the temple is to be a house of worship and a house of prayer. And in the Gospel of Matthew, right after he overturns the money changers, people flood into the temple, lame people, lepers, other people who are broken in body and spirit, and he heals them, as if to say, this is what the temple's purpose is. And it got me thinking about the purpose of Trillium. What should go on here in this place? I was never a big fan of the name of this church that I'm now the pastor at. When I came here, I loved a lot of the things of the church, but the name never really grabbed me initially. I never felt particularly comfortable with anything connected with gardening. Frankly, I don't really like gardening. Don't really garden very much. I garden as minimal as I can. And I'm not really into flowers that much. So having a church built on gardening and flowers and living plants wasn't something that I initially gravitated towards. But having been here for over 7 years, I've come to appreciate the image of the flower for us and how it really defines us as a community and brings clarity to what our purpose is, what we're about here at the church, and what we're actually, in a sense, allowing to be created in our midst. See, our vision at the church is faith in bloom, growing, thriving, serving together in Christ. And I love this idea of faith in bloom. Like, I want a life in bloom. I want a blooming life, a life that's filled with vivaciousness and splendor and wonder, this energy, this vitality. And when you look at a picture of a beautiful flower, it takes me into a rapturous place now of life, of abundant life. And that's what Trillium is about in many ways. Like, our mission, which is our purpose, is to awaken the Christ light in each other and shine it in the world. To wake up something that's fallen asleep within us, that's so precious, that's our divine nature that's fallen asleep. And then our bedrock beliefs and core values gives us ways of understanding how this goes about in our lives. What does waking up look like? When we wake up, what does life look like at that moment? And our vision tells us what we're growing towards, that we're becoming that abundant living community in our locale. We're becoming that abundant community. And I think when Jesus walked into the temple and he overturned those tables, he was trying to break once and for all this pattern of sacrifice and punishment and fear that so undergirds a lot of the religion that we live in, even today. Talking about fear, I got a phone call from my doctor. And I'd had some blood work done, and they said they wouldn't call me unless there was a problem. And of course, they called me, oh, you got wonderful blood work. Just one small problem. Your cholesterol's a bit high. When I heard that news, I kind of shuddered inside, and I kind of moaned inside, even though on the outside I was quite dignified and had my composure. But inside I'm going, no, please, please, please. Because I knew what it meant for me. It meant that I have to cut back on saturated fat in my life. I mean, putting aside all the numbers and what it means, I know I eat too much saturated fat, but I love it so much. I love cookies, and I love potato chips, and I love fried food, and I love chocolate, and I know I eat too much of it. I have a generally good diet, but I know I eat too much saturated fat, and this number tells me that I can't eat so much anymore, and I got to become conscious of what I put in my body in a way I've never had to worry about before. And I also realized, too, in this moment that my life's too sedentary. I mean, I work out and I take yoga and I do those sort of things, but most of my life I'm sitting down. I'm sitting down at the office working at the computer. I'm sitting down in my car driving. I'm sitting down on my hobbies and activities. I'm sitting down watching TV or whatever I might be doing. So much of my life I'm sitting down. I'm even sitting down right now. And modern living today, we've become so much a sitting down people. There's been a lot of articles written about this recently. Is sitting the new smoking was one article's focus? Have we become essentially a people committed to the practice of sitting? And what does sitting so much mean for us on a spiritual level? I mean, it seems to me that when your life's in bloom, if you're thriving and growing and serving, that these are action words, and there's something moving through us when we do this, and we're animated and we're engaged in a certain kind of vitalness, and we're in motion in life. How can people be faith and bloom if they're just sitting all the time? How can any of us be, in a sense, having a blooming of life if we're just sitting around all the time in chairs? Somehow we got to get out of the chair. Somehow we got to wake up out of the stupor we find ourselves in and start to become appreciative of what is really trying to move through us to the world. I really encourage you to think about some of the practices of your life that need to change, whether it's dietary or whether it's in fact moving out of this sedentary life that we all find ourselves in. We don't, and we cannot remain in this place in order to be a vital people. If we want to have that faith and bloom experience, if we want to have any notion of growing and thriving within us, if we want to flourish, if we want to bloom, then somehow this sedentary life and the practices that keep us asleep in body and in spirit have to come to an end for us. Let Jesus overturn the tables within yourself today into those patterns of life that no longer bring any kind of vital reality to you. Like Jesus overturned the tables spiritually within inside of your mind that hold you back from the practices and the extension of love in your day-to-day living. When this happens, I think you'll find not only will you begin waking up in body, but also in spirit and in heart. And that extension of love will flow through you, and you will feel a sense of joy and peace that goes beyond anything that we can understand. That's what I hope for you. The blooming life, flourishing, faith and bloom, let that be your guide this day. Go in peace.